Perik Kav Zayin, Pasuk Kav Daled. Okay. So it starts with a bunch of arurim, right? In fact, there are 12 of them, but the 12th one is a more generic one. And on arur number 10, what does it say? On arur number 10, Pasuk Kav Daled, Arur makereu b'seser v'amar kol ha'am amen. So says Rashi in Pasuk Kav Daled, Maker re'eu b'seser. What does that mean? Al lashon hara hu omer. So let's me all go on in this Rashi, and then we'll come back to these words. Ra'iti b'yisodo shel Rabbi Moshe Adarshan. Rashi quotes it from time to time. Yud Aleph Arurim Yeshkan. There's really 12, but the 12th one is a more general one. But there's 11 specific ones. Keneged Yud Aleph Shvatim. Hi, there's 12 Shvatim. וכנגד שמעון לא כוסף אורו, לפי שלא היה בליבו לברכו לפני מויסו כשברך שאר שבטים. Since Moshe Rabbeinu did not mevarech Shimon at the Zois HaBracha, Rashi over there explains it, לקח לא רצה לקל אלוהי. Right? If you didn't give him a bracha, you don't give him a klala. Which also reminds me of a story that I witnessed as a kid, and it's a mitzvah lefasim, that you can imagine when I was a kid, today probably would have called it ADHD, all the names that probably exist. Then these names, I'll call upon him. It was noticed already in 5th grade or 6th grade, and I broke the window of the classroom. And the teacher really got scared and gave me a patch. That's how it was. First of all, he thought it's dangerous, and I got wild. And I came home and I told my father that I broke a window, and the teacher gave me a patch. He never had the policy of criticizing my teachers in my presence. If he had anything to say, he told to them privately. I knew nothing about it. And he played, and I look back, I understand what he meant. He said, well, so I want to pay for the window. You broke a window, it's Hegdish money. I remember he said, the school's money is Hegdish money. So we got to pay for it. When do you have a break tomorrow that could come to the Rebbe and pay him? I said, 10:30, there's a break. Okay, I'll try to make it tomorrow at 10:30. And back in the window that I broke, which gave me a wonderful view, I saw him coming and parking. So we knew that there's a hiding place in the teacher's room, like a cupboard we were small enough to get in, and you could hear the conversation. Which I did, and I ran there as quick as I could, and I heard the conversation. So my father said, he told the Rebbe Shalom Aleichem, I understand yesterday was the incident. Yeah, you broke a window. So my father said, okay, so first of all I want to pay for how much is it? He said, I think it's 50 lirot. Those days lirot. Okay, here's 50 lirot. And then my father asked, what happened afterwards? And I gave him a patch. Why? Why did he give him a patch? So he wanted to brush him off. He said, I'm a father. Like you. Do you give him patches? Which the answer would have been very much so. So I also do. Ich bin euch the tate. So my father asked him, do you also give him kisses? Right. And he said, no. He says, so your father only for patches? If you give a kiss, you can give a patch. If you don't give a kiss, you can't give a patch. That's what he told him. And I had a lot of no hearing it, because there's a teacher that we didn't like that much. But then I see that this is what this Rashi is saying. If you don't get a baruch, you don't give a aura. If there's a baruch, there's an aura. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want to give a baruch to Shimon, he's not going to give an aura to Shimon. If you're willing to do the good, you could also have reshus to do the bad. Now, what is the connection between the two parts of Rashi? Al loshen hoira oimer re'isi b'yisoid shel Moshe Adarshan. So, Mishlam, if this would have been the first arur, we're in Pasuk Kav Daled. If this would have been the first arur, so Rashi said it, the first one. If it would have been the last one, Rashi said on the last one. That would have been understood. But he said on number 10, which is followed by another Arur Lokech Shochad, and then a more generic one, the Rashi tells again, Arur Shelo Yikem Es Divrei Torah. What's that Keshen? What is it Kashur Makereh B'Seisel Al Lashon Hara Hu Omer Ra'iti B'Yisodo Shel Moshe Darshan? Before Rashi asked that, that's a question that they ask. What happened here on this Arur after saying it's about Lashon Hara? Ra'iti B'Moshe Darshan. We'll leave this question meanwhile open. Beseder. Rabbi say, Ra'iti. There's a big sugya here. Do you know that the Maral says a chiddush in Hilchos Lashon Hara, which the Chofetz Chaim paskins differently, and the Chofetz Chaim quotes the Maral. The Chofetz Chaim quoted him. So Rabbi said, let's give a look. So first of all, maybe before we go to that Chofetz Chaim and the Maral, everyone has a sheet. Yeah, B'Kasha Binyamin. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry? Yeah, 100%. Here, there's more. Very good. Yeah. Let's go on, before we go back to this Lashon Hara business, Yud Aleph, is there anything about the number 11 that has to do with Klaus? So the Maharal explains that it does. So what you see on first page over here, what's in brackets, it's the Gemara in this week's Pasha. But Gemara Dvarim Kosav. Echad ha'saruim yesh keneged Yudav Shotim u'kulashano. What does it say? Li nir'eh mispar Yud Aleph yesh po oro. There's something intrinsic between the number 11 and oro. Lefi shaklola b'miut v'habrocha b'ribui. Bracha means abundance. What is the opposite of abundance? How would you say it in English? Scarce? It's like going down. Okay, yeah. Okay. The bracha is ribui, a family that has many, many children. So how do you call them in Eretz Yisrael? Mishpacha Beruchat Yeladim. And Rashi says, in the Gemara, he quotes the word in French, poishi belaz, which means ribui. Right? A bracha means ribui, an abundance. Mimela klala means miut. So says the Maharal, let's go on. Well, if you get Aleph, the number 1, forget about 11, hu oro, she'em bo ribui. V'chen bet, hu bracha. Lefi shu atchala sa ribui. If you get ot rishon min orur, Aleph. V'ot rishon min baruch, bet. U'bamedrash bara ha'olam bebet, the word brachis, bara ha'olam bebeis, below be'alef, ot rishon, mipnei she'alef yi'or, u'bet baruch, kedei she'yikiv l'olam. So meaning, the Maharal explain, we'll come back to it in a minute. 1 represents a lack of ribui, and that represents klala. 2 is already ribui. We learned this Maharal a few times, right? You remember? What's the argument that he has with Ibn Ezra? Remember what I'm saying? I'm sure we mentioned it throughout the years at least 10 times. Meaning, Chazal say the Torah starts with the letter Beit because Brachis because it's bracha. Asks the Ibn Ezra. Okay, I'm not going to get his Torah. But the Bria, which is Ribui, starts with Bet. That's what Chazal say. He's quoting this Chazal. Let's just go to the Nakuda that we spoke about many, many, many times. Ibn Ezra in his Akdama to Chumash says he will not go with the derech of Chazal in Agadatas because he doesn't understand so much. For example, the Torah starts with the letter Bet because the letter Bet represents bracha. So you could say bracha with it. He says, I know other words you could say with the letter Bet, which are not so complimentary. Bal Yudum, Behema, Buka, Beklu, whatever the word is over there. So look at the dictionary, you'll see how many words you could say with the letter Bet. There's hundreds or thousands of them. So because the word bracha makes Bet so significant, what about the other words? I'm not going with that mahalach. Says the Maharal in 3 places in the Svarim, V'Ibn Ezra asa atzmo kelo mevin divrei chachamim. He's making himself as if he doesn't understand what Chazal want. Remember what he says? It's such a classical example, guys. Come on. A classical example. Remember it now. Ad sof yemei chayim. Till the next time you use a beeper. Next time. Is that it? Okay. We don't use beepers anymore. That's what I'm saying it. Says the Maral, that's not what Chazal meant. It's a classical example. Chazal did not mean that the word bracha, the letter bet, is significant because you could pronounce with the letter bet the word bracha. That's not what Chazal meant. If that's what they would have meant, the Ebenezer would have been right. There's other words you could mention, bet, which are not that gishmak. But what Chazal meant is intrinsically the letter bet represents bracha. Because 2 is the beginning of ribui in the world. What's the transition from singular to plural? 1 to 2. 2 to 3 is already plural to plural. 2 is the psicha, is the haschala of every ribui in the world. Therefore, the letter bet intrinsically represents ribui because it's the second letter of the aleph base. And as a siman ladova, not siba, the siman what the bet is about. Look at the word bracha. That it's what is the shorish of the word bracha? Bet reish chaf. Bet is gematria 2. Reish is gematria 200, and chaf is gematria 20. It's all the 2s of the aleph base. That's what Chazal meant. It's not the shorish. It's not part of the shorish. It's loshan nekeva. Pasha, l'cholam shlam. Pasha. Ish mimele zok de'ele kemarav. That's what Chazal meant. That the letter bet be'etzem is bracha. Because it's the second letter of the aleph base. And when they mentioned the word bracha, it was not a siba, but a siman. You see, that's what bracha is about. The second. And then in another place, I'll show it to you in another way. How do you say 2 in Hebrew? Shnaim. It has a yud mem. How do you say 3? What happened to the yud mem? If you say yud mem, it's shloshim. How come there's a yud mem by 2? Usually yud mem is by the tens. All the other numbers, yud mem is by the tens. Shalosh with yud mem shloshim. Arba with yud mem is arbaim. How do you have it already by 2? But Chazal wanted to point out that Lashon HaKodesh is pointing out that the number 2 already represents ribui. It's mamash gavaldik. Mamash makes you understand why you're Jewish. I'm serious. These Divrei Torah tell you why you're Jewish. That everything in our Torah is so molech chochmah. What? Yeah, 100%. Because it starts with the word shnaim. That's the question. Why? It all starts with shnaim.
Sorry, the Balaturm, I think on the Kisei says the same thing about the Bachar the Bachar gets pi shnayim. The Balaturm.
Yeah, the Balaturm says it also on the pasuk b'nei b'chor Yisrael. That's what the Meir Simcha says it as well. Now, here's interesting to think about that. A Bchor is the beginning of the ribui. By the way, a couple gets married and he's called Bchor, but there the letters are written according to the Seder. Bet Chaf Reish. Bracha, it's not written Keseder. Bet Reish Chaf. So the intellectual human yid will think about it. Ha Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak's wife is an Eloka for the Beis HaLevi. That's again his children, so also because the Landos are Gavaldik. Don't get me wrong. I'm teaching Moshe Aaron this year. I'm at Suya Nifla. Baruch Hashem. Anyway, Rabbi say it's something in the land of heaven, something in the water. I asked him if he could give me a bottle with the water. Ulo רוצה. כמה עולה bottle? 5 pounds? אני אתן לך 5 pounds. בסדר. Anyway, Baruch Hashem. It should be always bracha v'simcha. By all of us, praise Hashem. Why is that the bracha is not keseder and bchor is keseder? It's not a topic for today, but since I see the oilam is chalashing to here, I see the chuka. Right. I think I have a shot. The Mal explains why if someone's named after something, the letters are never in the order. For example, Shmuel is called Mehashem Shel Tiv. So the mem should have been first. Shmuel, the pasuk says Mehashem Shel Tiv. So how come the mem is the second letter and the shin comes first? And he brings a lot of examples to that. And as I said, also the word as I remember now exactly what he says there. He says, you know why? Because when this reason is hidden, meaning the reason of the name and the name itself, the reason of the name is hidden in the reality. When you see Shmuel, he's a regular kid. He's bouncing around like any other kid. Do you see on him Hashem Shaltiv? That's it's behind the scenes. A mahalach, what happened there, how this kid came to the world. Me Hashem Shaltiv. Since it's hidden, so it's also hidden in the reality, and the letters are mixed up. You know, the same sort. If it's clear in the Metzias, it's clear in the Torah, along the same lines. A name, meaning if the reason of the name is not clear cut, rather hidden, so the name will not illustrate in a clear way that reason, rather it will be a little covered. So how do you cover it? By changing the order, right? So Shmuel is called not Mishol, whatever, Me Hashem Shaltiv, because it's part of the kisui of the Siba, since the Siba is not clearly cut, a clear cut seam. That's what he says about in two places. Abchor is clear cut. You see he's first. You're not hiding it. There's a bunch of kids. He's number one. So therefore, what?
Why is Torah for cat? Top is 400, 200.
What's kashur? It's the shorish Yud Resh Hey, and it's nothing to do with it. What's kashur? We're not saying it every time that we're okay, because but it's a different thing totally. Over there, it's the shorish Yud Resh Hey. Hoira. Oh, but I say, you know what? Let's stop it now. Bekitzer, the reason which is in the head, I'm not saying it clear enough now. So what we're saying, so maybe I'll just throw it to you and then we'll go on, because it's a little. I have to explain a little bit how Pchor works, how the Pchor works. But the Pchor, whatever's hidden, you see clearly in the reality. No need to hide it up. Yeah.
Why is it Bukhari not Aleph?
Because he's the first one. It's compared to the parents, so to speak. They got together and here's their first ribui. That's what it means. But all this and more in another time. You know what? I owe you one. Beseder, let me know. I owe you one. You're going to maybe delete it from the thing. These few minutes. Why bracha, the letters are not keseder, and by Bchor, the letters are keseder. Fine. Now let's go on what we say. How come 11 and here we're saying 11? So the Mal goes on and explains. V'yud aleph yoter oro. It's double decker. Ki moreza al klola me'es Hashem. Ki ad mispar asor hu sheach letachtoinim. Kumo she'amu, the Gemara in Sukkah, lo ala Moshe b'leyo l'man ma'asara. Till 10 it's man's domain. Above 10 is Hashem's domain. ולקח מספר יואלף הוא התחלת המספר המתייחס אל עליונים, כמו אחד בתחתונים. וכאן בא לומר שיהיו אורים מן השם יזבח, ולפי כך האורים י"א. So meaning, when you're speaking from the HaKadosh Baruch Hu's perspective, which is above 10, so whatever's won by us, by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's 11. Okay? And then he says, Oru b'mispor katan. You know what mispor katan means? When you add the letters without the zeros. So what's Oru? Let's go through it. 1, Reish, 2, Vav, Reish. Again, so how much is that? 1, 2, 6. How much is that? 11. Baruch. Base of 2. Reish is again 2. So 4. Vav. Another 6, 10. Chaf is 2 again. So it's Yud Bet. So he's showing that Yud Bet. Good. Bekitzer. So that's what the Mal explains on this Rashi, that the 10 and then 11 represents Klala and 12 represents Bracha. Fine. Ad kan dvorav on this topic. Now let's go back to a second to what we want to speak about here. There's a machlokes between the Maharal and the Chofetz Chaim in Hilchos about Lashon Hara. Now, personally, I can tell you that by me that hits home because these two are my heroes. Of course, the Maharal lived 300 years earlier. Of course, I'm not comparing Chas v'Shalom. Not my job to compare. But the Maharal, yeah, and the Chofetz Chaim is a Saba Kadisha. We all feel towards him like a grandfather. You don't feel towards him like we all feel. A Kohen as well. You should know it's a divine decree that's how Am Yisrael treats him. I'm serious. It's not a Pidar Chateva. I asked Mohalim. The name Yisrael Meir is extremely still popular. Other names aren't. Reb Chaim Oizer is not popular anymore. Avram Yishayahu was not so popular anymore. Yisrael Meir the whole time. Isn't fed up against it. There's something here which is beyond rational ragil. I have a grandson called Yisrael Meir. How many kids do you know today called Chaim Oizer? There's a few, I'm sure. And he was a giant. Lived at the same time with Chaim Oizer. It's a phenomenon. How many are called Boch Ber?
We all learn this far every single day.
You think that's the reason?
Must be.
Could be. Because Mishabru and Chamatzat, it could be. Or there's something more. I think there's something more. But again, first let me explain Bracha and Baruch, and then we'll go to that. But say to go what we're saying. There's a machlekes between the Maram. We're going to go into it now. If you say Lashon Hara, if Reuven says Lashon Hara in the presence of Shimon, Shimon's there. Is that called Lashon Hara? Yes or no? The Chofetz Chaim paskins clearly that this is called Lashon Hara. The Maharal in the Siva Lashon that we're going to sing soon, we're going to see it soon, paskins, no, it's not called Lashon Hara. And the Chofetz Chaim asks of the Maharal two gewaldige kashas. I mean, this is his baby. No, but we're speaking about Lashon Hara.
What?
We're speaking about Lashon Hara.
No, but that is the definition of Lashon Hara. If
Lo-
Lashon Hara causes...
No. Again, the Chofetz Chaim doesn't raise that point. He asks, I'm going to show you soon. But Rabbi said, before we go into any lumdus, look at this pasuk. Arur makera eu b'seiser. Says Rashi, that's Lashon Hara. Isn't this a big right to the Maharal? If Lashon Hara is also face to face, why is it called b'seiser?
As well. To say evil.
But again, if it's both, why are you saying seser?
Because it's the law. It's normally one.
Normally, okay, but according to Maharal, it's be'etzem.
It's because the makkah is not seen.
No, if it's in face, why it's not seen? Because there's no knife? Nah, that's not called seser because there's no knife. The Pashim shot ask anybody, but says it's behind his back. He's not even aware of it. That's the Pashim shot.
The oral was said on the
I'm sorry?
the oral was said on the things which are higher down than this. So saying it behind someone's back is worse.
Is it? Let's see, the Chofetz Chaim doesn't say that. I'll show you. But so let's go over now to the Chofetz Chaim. On page 2, you have the Chofetz Chaim. The Heilige Saba Kadisha. On page 2. By the way, each one stays with his, and it's a gift. Shalom and not lahzer. Remember? It's yours now. Okay? Don't worry, I have enough Kadisha. Don't worry. Give a look. In the beginning of Klal Sheni. So the Heilige Chofetz Chaim, he says, Meferish, we could read a little bit what he, let's start with where the arrow is. Hagah. V'ayin b'nesivas oilam. B'nesiva loshem b'perek zayin. Here, the Chofetz Chaim is quoting a Maharal. And you know what? Let's go look at, you know what? In letter Tet, he quotes it. So let's read letter Tet. Shekosab. The Maharal wrote, Al hadu omar Rava ba'erchin. Rava said, Echim, kol misa divsa'amri ba'ap imara, leis be mishum lishna bisha. If you say it in his face, it's not called Lashon Hara. V'zeh l'shoinoi. Here comes the Maharal. Ki ein Lashon Hara kasher adam yesh lo meriva u'ktota im acherim. Lashon Hara is not something that's said as a confrontational thing. And here it says v'chulu. Let's read together what the Maharal said there. She'ein zeh nitla b'lashon. If it's done in a confrontational way, it's not necessarily said in lashon. Shekasher hu lefanav yachol la'akot oto v'la'argo. Once it's done in a confrontational way, it doesn't have to be dafka through speech. You want to hurt him, you can kill him, you can hit him. Interesting swear of the Maharal. Let's go on now. וגם another point, כאשר הוא לפני חברו, אז יכול לעמוד כנגדו להשיב על דבריו, the friend has a chance to answer back. וכיוון שיכול להשיב על דבריו ויכול לעמוד כנגדו, אין זה כל כך רע שיהיה נקרא לשון הרע. It's not called לשון הרע. ויותר, אף אם לא היה בפניו, even if it's not in his presence. רק אם היה בפניו אותו שאומרים עליו לשון הרע, לא היה מקפיד או אומר, but if he would have been in his presence, he also would have said it. Yeah, I would have said it even in his presence. וגם לפניו היה אומר, אין זה לשון הרע. כיוון שאם היה בפניו לא היה זה לשון הרע, ואינו מדקדק בזה לומר שלא בפניו, אין זה לשון הרע בעצמו בעצם. כי צריך שיהיה לשון בעצמו לשון הרע. וזה שהיה אומר דובר זה, אף בפניו, אין זה לשון הרע בעצם או בעצמו, רק אם מדקדק שלא לומר בפניו, רק שלא בפניו. דובר זה תוילה בלשון דווקא, והוא שנקרא לשון הרע דווקא בלשון. We're going to come back to this Maral in a minute, but the Maral clearly says Lashon Hara is not in the presence of, how would you call the person that you're speaking about? The victim? I don't know, not victim. What? The subject. Good translation. That's the Maral Shita. The Chofetz Chaim says, I can't understand that. He quotes the Maral, and he says, V'tzach in godelam misifri zeh. Look at letter Yud. What's the free? The Yad because Shemotzi Shemra Befanea Umuchach Da'af Bezover Lo Tilach Rachel. He quotes it before. The Gemara Ksubas and Daf Mevav Dalam says Azar Lemotzi Shemra Minalan. When do we know that a warning of Motzi Shemra? It quotes the pasuk Lo Tilach Rachel, which is the pasuk of Lashon Hara. And by Motzi Shemra it says explicitly. Rashi brings it in the Chumash that she has to be there, so she's present in the room when he's Motzi Shemra. And that the Gemara says that's the love of Lo Tilach Rachel, which is Lashon Hara. And Motzi Shemra is the only difference between the two is Motzi Shemra is the sheker and Lashon Hara is emes. But that doesn't make a difference. That's what the Chofetz Chaim is saying here. וצריכים גודל מספרי זה. וזה ידוע שאין לחלק בישראל לשון הרע חילוק בין שקר לאמס. There's no chiluk because if it's true or not true. And on the when it's not true, Chazal say, what's the makor of the Isser? Lo telech rachel, like when Ksubas Daf Mevav with Aleph. And she's present in the room. She's there. Okay? That's question number one that he asks. Ubefrat, specifically, Ma yaneh ledat Rabbi Nosson b'sifri. What does Rabbi Nosson say in the Sifri? The Omar, the Maaseh, the next page, Rabbi say 3, but with the arrow. The Maaseh the Miriam b'fnei Moshe Haba. Rabbi Nosson says when Miriam, the classical case of Lashon Hara, when she said what she said, Moshe Rabbeinu was there. And that's called Lashon Hara. ואף על כן מפורסם בכל התורה שנקרא זה המעשה לשון הרע. עד כאן. So the Chofetz Chaim asks the Saba Kadisha, more than the Chofetz Chaim, asks two gewaldige kashas on the Chofetz Chaim, on the Maral. The Maral says that Lashon Hara is only when it's lo b'fanav, but if it's b'fanav, it's not called Lashon Hara because you could hit him or kill him any other way. In another way, says the Chofetz Chaim, I got two kashas. The Gemara in Ksubas Motzi Shema says, Azor lo Motzi Shema minayin. It says, Lo tilach rachel, and she's present, and that's the issue of Lashon Hara. So you see this Lashon Hara is applicable even if the subject is present. And even a stronger kasha, Rabbi Nosson says, when Miriam spoke Lashon Hara about Moshe, Moshe was there. He's standing there. Sitting there. He was there. So how could the Maral say what he's saying? And therefore the Chofetz Chaim paskins, as we all know when you learn the Sefer Chofetz Chaim, he says Lashon Hara has been b'fanav and shem below b'fanav, and that's beferish Lashon HaRambam as well. Here, the Rambam in Hilchos Deis, the Rambam in Perek Dalet, Halacha Zayin, in Hilchos Deis. I'll read you the illusion of the Rambam. Here it is, Perek Dalet, Halacha Zayin. How come I'm not finding it now? I'm not finding it now. I'm seeing, I don't have the right halacha. Where's the Rambam? Oh, what's that saying? Perek Zayin halacha hey. Of course, I got mixed up. Perek Zayin halacha hey. Says the Rambam, Echad ha-mesper Lashon Hara b'fnei chaver o shelo b'fanav. That's the Rambam paskins. And the Chofetz Chaim paskins says, I don't understand the Maral. Rabbi Say, I first would like to answer the two questions of the Chofetz Chaim. I'd like to answer it. and then I want to have a pella on the Chofetz Chaim. Not me, the Rabbi Shapiro said. Let's start. What did the Maral say? How come if it's b'fanav, it's not called Lashon Hara? He says b'fanav, you could also hit him or kill him. What kind of swear is that? What kind of swear is that? Of course, I want to show how the Maral uses this swear elsewhere. Let's go now, please, to the next page. Over there, he's speaking about the Mishnah Shnaim She Yoshvim V'Oskim B'Divrei Torah. And then, if it says, and when he's learning by himself, it says, Minayin Echad, it doesn't say Divrei Torah anymore. So here on page 4, look what the Maral says. U'pnei ki shnaim hem kasher medabrim divrei Torah hi Torah gemura. When two people converse in Torah, that's real talking of Torah. Torah is when you verbalize it. Torah gemura. That's complete Torah. They can only communicate through speech. If they don't speak to each other, how can they understand what each one thinks? Aval echad, someone learning by himself, even if he's like Rebbeinu Ro. Did you ever see Rebbeinu Ro, how he learns Torah? David Ro's brother? It's unbelievable. He dabbles in hand and that, so I see it a lot. When he learned by himself, if you'd be in the other room, you'd think it's 2 chabrusas there. I mean, 1 chabrusa. It goes like this. Such chiyus. So, okay, again, in Erev Pesach, you're usually kicked out of the house, and I'm in Galus usually in Erev Pesach, because that's my contribution when I'm away. And also, apparently, Benny Rowe was also in Galus, and we both were in Galus together in the Hand in the Das library. I couldn't believe it. It's lo human. He fucks himself. Okay, now let's go into the Gemara. So what does that mean? No, you can't say that. That doesn't make sense. No, that's silly. Okay, let's try again. He's learning by himself. I'm serious. I tell the boys in the hospital when they're listening by themselves. They're not learning. So why aren't they learning? I'm waiting for a chabrusa. Benny Rowe doesn't wait for his chabrusa. He learns with the geshmak echiyus when he's alone, and he spells everything out. I hope he's Michael me that mafasa. But his chiyus says the Maral, even when Benny Rowe speaks to himself, it's not called divrei Torah. Why? He doesn't have to talk to himself. When you learn by yourself, it's enough that you think. That's not called divrei Torah. You can learn being quiet. When you learn it by yourself, the main thing is the machshava. The dibur, it just happens to be. That's not called divrei Torah. It's impossible that they won't verbalize. And then he goes on saying, meaning the limud shnayim, oisik b'divrei Torah, v'lo nikra kasher b'yochid. שהרי תמצא ויאמר בליבו, לכן ואין זה דיבור ממש, וזה מפני כי אצל היוחיד הדיבור והמחשבה שווה, ולפיכך לא נקרא זה דברי תורה, רק כאשר הם שניים, שאז נקראו דברי תורה. ולכך אצל שניים אומר שניים שיש ביניהם דברי תורה, ואצל אחד אומר אחד שיושב ועוסק בתורה. But it doesn't say divrei. Okay? Rabbi, so what's the Maral saying there? Again, the same surah. When you learn it by yourself, do you have? Is it prerequisite to speak it out? No. You could manage without speaking it out. So even when you do speak it out, it's not called dibur. When you have a variety of ways to do things, and you could do it this way or that way, you can't say on any of them, it's intrinsic. Because I could do it the other way. I got other options. It's not be'etzem. When you're saying lashon hara to someone in his face, and you're hurting him, that's what lashon hara does, but you could hurt him also in other ways. So dibur is just one oifen of hurting someone. You could also physically or otherwise hurt him. That's not called lashon. What's called lashon? When it's lo b'fanav. How could you hurt someone that shelo b'fanav? It's the only way it's through dibur. That's called lashon hara. It's a classical Swav Maral. He says it a few times. If when you do something, you could do it in other options, there's 4 ways how to do it. So each way is not be'etzem, because I could do it another way, just as good. I'll reach the same results, also doing it another way. Masha'en ken, when you're far away from him, he's in Australia, how could you hurt someone who's out in Australia? Again, you could send him a beeper. Okay, that's no hasarias, but that's only the last 2 days we know that. You can send him a beeper. Okay, but how could you hurt someone who's in Australia? Only through speech. There's no other option. That's called lashon hara. L'chur, that's what I'm saying. Oy, but say, guys, I don't think the kasha of the chofetz chaim are shver. Again, what's the Maral saying? When there's an alternative to the dibur, so that dibur is not called lashon hara. In the Moisei Shema that he's presenting his case in court, is there an alternative to dibur? Could he kill her or hit her? That won't do the job. In a court case that he's presenting his case against her, he's claiming that she was mizaneh. Does he have an option to do it not through dibur? What? No, ksiva is called dibur. And also the Maral didn't offer ksiva. Ksiva is called dibur. Right? So we met, Chavre, I'm telling you, Richard, it's dibur Elokim Chaim, it's super duper geschmack. I'm trying to answer the kasha of the Chofetz Chaim, the Holy of Holies, and lashon hara. He's Mar Dasra. He's it. But I want to try to answer what the Chofetz Chaim, what the Maral may answer back. When did the Maral say that when you say it b'fanav, it's not called lashon hara? When you have an option of reaching the same goal in other means, by hitting him or killing him. Do you have that in a Moisei Shema? So of course it's called lashon hara, even though she's there. Because you don't have an alternative of speech. Pasha. Now let's go to Miriam. Rashi points out, Rabbi, give a look at Rashi in Bamidbar Perek Yud Beis Pasuk Aleph. Bamidbar Perek Yud Beis Pasuk Aleph. I can tell it to you early, but let's see the Rashi inside. Yud Bet Aleph. It's on page Taf Mem Hey. The third. But the Miriam. He pascha, she started, and she said that he was porish me'ishtoi, and then Rashi says at the end, Uma Miriam shelo nitkavna lignoisoi, kach ne'ensha, kavachomer le'masapa b'gnusa shchaver. Miriam did not mean to insult Moshe. She wasn't there to cause pain to Moshe. What was she coming to do? What would you say, Moshe? Was she coming to humiliate him and insult him and hurt him? No. Rather, giving Musar. You know, Daddy should be tucking his ways. Could you do that by killing him or hitting him? Again, you don't have the alternative of dibur. If the one who's talking is kavanos lahazik, let's speak about kamadik. If it's like a Karen kavanos lahazik, he's out to cause damage. Well, before of you have a variety of ways of causing damage. Nachon Yehuda. Yeah. Right? You have a variety of ways of causing damage. You could tell him in his face, you could hit him, you could kill him, all kinds of ways. Then dibur has an alternative. And since a dibur is an alternative, says the Maral this first, so dibur is not the only way to accomplish that. There's other ways. So it's not be'etzem. That's the Svar of the Maral. But if you don't have an alternative of hitting or killing, so we're back to the fact that you only have dibur. So what if the subject is there? But you don't have that other option to hit him or kill him. So if Miriam is out to hurt Moshe Rabbeinu, and to embarrass him, and to humiliate him, and to cause him pain, well, she can cause him pain also by other ways. But she's not. I said she wasn't miskabel gnusay. She came with a heart full of love. She wasn't down like kafsos, and she wanted to give him musar. Meaning, like a parent tells a child, you know, they should rectify his ways. Is there any alternative by hitting him or killing him?
No, she could have done it without speaking lashon hara. She could have said constructive musa.
Okay, but that's not what the point is. That's not what the Maral said. The Maral said it's not lashon hara if you could say constructive musa. That's not what he says. He says lahorgor or lakosoy. That's what he said. What's added with the pen, with handwriting? I'm sorry? No, it's an opinion of the Sifri. It's an opinion of the Sifri. Reb Nassan. Because I'm pointing out, Rabbi Yisrael, that according to what the Maral defines himself, that if you could do it elsewhere, not through dibur, That's called dibur again. If you can do it not through dibur, then it's not called diburdik. Well, that's only when there's another option, not to do it through dibur. But if you don't have the other option, so even if the subject is present, I see the guys are really besimcha. I see the smiling faces. Yeah, I don't see it so much today. I don't see such smiling faces today. Lo mishaneh. What we say, it's a pella on the Chofetz Chaim that asks this kasha. The Maharal said it on the Gemara. There's such an opinion. It's in the Gemara and Erchin Daf Tezvav Amud Beis. Look in the bottom of the page. There's a machlokes there between Amoraim. This topic. If you say Lashon Hara in front of him in his presence, is it called Lashon Hara? Yes or no? Rava says it's not Lashon Hara. You know, it's brought down here. Rabbi say, give a look. It's brought down here on page 2. Give a look at page 2. They quote the Gemara a little bit initially. Give a look at box test. Letter test, I'm sorry. On page 2 on letter tet. You don't like the text, right? You like outside. Yeah. Rava said it. Kol milta de misamri ba'ape mara. Something that you're willing to say in his face. Leikbe mishum lishnabisha. Rava said it. Then came someone and argued on him. That's Abai. Abai came and argued. And he answered back. So, if you want to prove Rava wrong, how come you didn't quote this Sifri that the Chofetz Chaim quotes? How come you didn't quote the Pasuk from Miriam? Meaning, furthermore, the Kesed Mishnah, here on this Rambam, the Kesed Mishnah, and Perek Zayin, you know what he says? Here he says the Kesed Mishnah, in Halacha Hey, he quotes the Rambam, even though it's in the later Halacha, in Halacha Zayin, he quotes it by saying that Lashon Hara is ben b'fanav ben shelo b'fanav. You know what the Kesed Mishnah says? Omar Rava, hine, u'ma shekosav echad mesaper Lashon Hara b'fnei chaver v'shelo b'fanav, says the Kesed Mishnah, b'perek shlishi de'achin, Omar Rava. Rava says, Kol mita de'ape ba'ape mara le'esem b'shul l'shlebisha. Omar so Abai told him back, no, it's even worse. Omar I hold like Rabbi Yossi, v'yesh li t'mo al Rabbeinu. Lama katavta lo Rava? The Kesed Mishnah is a tzarchion. He says in the Rambam, how come you're not passing like Rava? Usually Abai and Rava, Allah like Rava. So it's a machlokes Amoraim. Some Rishonim do paskin like Rava. Interesting. The Rabbeinu Yoina. I brought it here with me. The Rabbeinu Yoina in Shar Shlishi, Reish Yud Dalet. That's Rabbi Shua David. That's my name. That's a medicine to remember. And he says Mefarish that if it's in his presence, it's called one thing. If it's not in his presence, it's called Lashon Hara. So I'm just telling the Rabbeinu of the Helik Chofetz Chaim. If what you think is such a solid proof, how could Rava argue with the pasuk? How come the Gemara didn't attack Rava based on what happened with Miriam, like you're attacking the Maharal? How come the Gemara didn't bring the ride from Motzi Shemra? The two kashas that the Chofetz Chaim asks on the Maharal, those two kashas are on Rava, and there are Rishonim who paskin like Rava, meaning the Maharal's not das Yachid. The one who asked this kasha is Rabbi Shapiro Zatzal in the Yeshurun. You know the publication called Yeshurun? And Krach Lamed Zayin, page Reish Ayin Bet. There's a shtickle there of Rabbi Shapiro. I want to move a moment. Anyway, again, I want to get the oil. And he says, Chofetz Chaim, if you think your kashas are good kashas, how come the Gemara didn't ask it on Rava? The Maharal's just quoting Rava. What do you want from him?
I told that Rava that Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't there.
Okay, so you can say maybe what about the pasuk of Motzi Shemra? But again, you could say maybe Rava holds like the other opinion. You could say that. But it's Tanaim, right? I mean, so Rava's putting himself between two Tanaim. Not so ideal. And what about the pasuk Motzi Shemra? If these are real kashas, how come they weren't ask it on Rava? That's what Moshe Shapiro asks. The Maharal is quoting Rava. Look, you see in letter Tet, the Maharal himself in the Siva Lashon is quoting what Rava said. So since he's quoting what Rava said, If you think that your kashas are really so gewaldig, how come the Gemara didn't ask it? Muchach that these kashas are not so schwer. Muchach. Now, according to what I'm saying, I think that's one explanation. When you have an alternative to speech, then speech is not called Lashon Hara. But if you don't have an alternative to speech, and the only way to accomplish what you want to accomplish is through speech, that's called Lashon Hara, even if the subject's present. So, Mimele, that's a kamra by side. So I'm answering the case of the Chofetz Chaim, but it's a little bit of a pella that it's like so pushed to the Chofetz Chaim that Issa Lashon Hara is Ben B'fanav and Shalom B'fanav. When it's a Machlokes Amoraim, Rava says that it's not Lashon Hara. The Rambam does a pasuk like him, and the Kesef Mishnah wonders why do you pasuk like Rava? The Kesef Mishnah remains B'tzachiyun. How come you don't pasuk like Rava? So how can you just like say it's so pushed that the Lashon Hara is Ben B'fanav and Shalom B'fanav when there's a Rava that says explicitly it's not? Is this gishmak or not so gishmak? Because I see faces like today. The faces today are a little bit dull.
They probably wanted to hear it. It's not the Shemara.
I hear, or maybe because it's another 2 weeks from now. It's already Rosh Hashanah, so people are a little bit scared. Maybe Libud Schus. People already have Emes Adin. Right? That's what it is. Again, when you look at the moral inside, also Rav Hutner Zatzal, and the Pachad Yitzchak Shvus, Maimer Gimel, speaks about this Chofetz Chaim and Maharal. As far as I understand, I think it's the only time the Chofetz Chaim quotes a Maharal. I think. But here he quotes him, and apparently, how did he know the Sibah Lashon Perek Zayin? I guess he did learn this from him. No? Yeah? So again, Rabbi said, we're not machriya between these two giants. Chas v'shalom. But again, I'm afraid to answer my phone. Maybe it's going to explode. How do I make it? I don't want to answer the phone this year. Right. I should put on sound before. I'm sorry. Rabbi say, "Ihir chaveh." But let's go back to the pasuk. Makere eu b'seser. Isn't that a big right? What the Ral says? That Lashon Hara is hidden. Remember that we stam a cute thing with the word seter? That this is a word that made in 16 other languages? Mystery. You know, in 50 languages the word mystery means hidden. And it comes from our Hebrew word seter. Yeah, man. I checked it out in French and Russian and Italian and all the languages that we have some shaykhs with. In English, mystery. It comes from the word seter. And the truth is, it has to come from Yidden. There's no such thing as seter by a goy. It's all begoli. Who can bring me right to what I just now said? By almost elements goli and by Yidden it's seter. I'm a finisher Rashi. 10 pounds, whoever tells me it. 10 pounds of Rashi and Chumash. The Umas Elam is begoli and Yisrael is beseiser. Rashi on the Pentateuch. Harabarch. The truth is, we think we know Rashi. I also, my son asked me for them Rashis, and I say, I don't know, I don't know it either. But first, let me share Rashi at Pashas B'Chorsai. V'radu b'chem mikem u'mikem. That when you have Yiddish enemies, they're worse. Give a look at Rashi on that second version when he says it again. Where is it, Chavre? Here. It's in, I think, Perek Kava Pasuk Zayin, V'radu b'chem soynechem. But then Rashi has one parish, then it brings another parish. Look at page Shin Tzadik Hey. On page Shin Tzadik Hey, at the end of the right column of Rashi. He goes back again. V'radu b'chem soynechem. You have it, Chavre? Shin Tzadik Hey? Huh? You have it, Chavre?
Yeah.
Perek Kava Pasuk Zayin? Perek Kava Pasuk Zayin. But Rashi explains twice. So it's a little bit tricky. שאני ממיץ לכם אל מכם ובכם, שבשעה שאומות העולם עומדים על ישראל, אינם מבקשים אלא מה שבגלוי. שנאמר וים זרע ישראל ולא ידע ויקראו אני משחית את גבול הארץ. אבל בשעה שמיד לכם מכם וכם הם חפשים אחר מטמוניוס שלכם. היד is מטמוניוס. הגוי is a גולוי. Rashi. A goy can't say the word mystery. It matters. It's against his whole DNA. It had to come from us. And Esther, the hero of Purim, is called from the word seter. You hear? The way you nod your head, I'm not so puzzled. Huh? I had one Talmud that all the time, whenever he used to argue with me a lot, which is fine. That was 100% fine. And a lot of times he would move his head. And then we came to the conclusion that the movement of the head means I can't get my head around it. Plus some shot. You know, the head movement says a lot. Anyway, Rabbi say, so it's Rabbi Shapira, again, is the one who asked this question. It's like a little bit of a pillar. How the Chofetz Chaim takes as a dover pushet that Lashon Hara has to be before him. He could pass like the Rambam. He has al milismach, nothing wrong with it. But you should know, Rabbi Rabbeinu Yoina says it's only Shalom before him. And Rabbi Shapira, and I looked it up, also says the Sefer Yereim, Simon Kuf Tzadik Aleph also says like the Maharal. I mean, where the Maharal says like him. It's not. He's not a Das Yachid, and it goes back to the Gemara. Machlokes of Rav and Abaye. And Rav is the one who says it's Dafka Shalom B'fanav. Amal B'fanav is something else. And the Chofetz Chaim says, how could you say something like that? It's a shtickle pella on the Halakha Chofetz Chaim. But it's for sure he knew these things, especially in Lashon Hara. He knew the Kesef Mishnah. I promise you he did. So tzrichim lasbir pshat in the Chofetz Chaim. I'll tell you what, I said once Rav Hutner Zatzal told me, when he was in his early 20s, he had a kasha on what the Chofetz Chaim paskins in the Mishnah Brura, that Shema could be said in all languages. That's what Chazal, the halacha is. But it comes to Chofetz Chaim with the Chiddush, if it's not Lashon HaKodesh, it has to be the language of that venue. English in England works. French in France works. French in London will not work. That's what the Chofetz Chaim paskins in Simon Samach Beis. Or English in France will not work. If it's not Lashon HaKodesh, it has to be the spoken language of that venue. That's what the Chofetz Chaim paskins. And Rav Hutner had a big kasha on it. I know the kasha. It's a mission from a mission in Saita. And he went to Reb Chaim Oizer. And he told Reb Chaim Oizer, this is my kasha with the Mishnah paskins. And the Chofetz Chaim was still alive. So the Chaim Oizer told Rav Hutner, you're a young man, you're in your early 20s, travel to Radin. And ask the Chofetz Chaim. It was a day or two to get to Radin, but it was worth it. He traveled to Radin, and the Chofetz Chaim was already hard on hearing. He, in principle, did not buy hearing aids, because he said, no one's going to scream to me Lashon Hara. Okay, I want to hear Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara, you sound like Mesaser, whatever. Like, if I want to hear Lashon Hara anymore. And Rav Hutner told him the kasha. And the Chofetz Chaim said, Rosh. He said it again, and Rav Hutner had a loud, powerful voice. And Rabbi Yehuda, you know what happened there? I'll tell you. That the Chofetz Chaim heard the kasha, and he told him it's a kuta kasha. But I remember when I passed in this halacha, I was duch in the sugya. I don't have another koiches to go back into it. That's what he said. He came back to Reb Chaim Oizer, and Reb Chaim Oizer said, no. He asked the Chofetz Chaim, yeah. What did he say? He really didn't answer me. He just told me that he was duch in the sugya when he passed in it. Kvar hoyra zoken, said Reb Chaim Oizer. He heard your kasha and didn't take it back? Still held on to say, when I passed the halacha, I knew what I was doing? We're staying with that halacha. It's an expression of the Gemara, Kvar hoyra zoken. The Chofetz Chaim heard your kasha and said, he didn't say you're right. He said, when I passed and I was duch in the sugya, shalom balon. The halacha reads, Kurada, I remember when we were in Kiddushin, I came up with an answer. I mean, you don't have to be that brilliant. I came up with an answer on this kasha. I remember it's based on a ritva and Charufasi. Oh, that's sugya over there. She can be Yehuda, according to Yehuda. You know, that's over there. But the Rabbi Oizer said, Kvar hoyra zoken. And it's not that the Chofetz Chaim argued with him. He just said, I just remember when I passed in that sugya, I was very, very into it. Okay, Chavre. So we're talking about malachim, be'emes. Remember, we're talking about angels here. Yes, Rabbi Yehuda.
So did you answer the question about why Moshe Dashan's here?
No.
Right, okay.
Well, we'll have to know. I have an answer, which I myself know it's not that great, and I'm afraid what I thought was great, I see how the oil was responding. So what's not great, Kavachomer. So I'm going to go say, when I thought it's Edis, the oil says it's Benonis or less. So something that I say it's Benonis, what's the oil going to say? Right? I thought it was Rabbi Gorovitz when he told me. I was sitting next to him in a chasna about 9 years ago. Rabbi Gorovitz, Adam Gadol, who doesn't speak a lot. You know, I tell you what happened? I mentioned it, right? His father's shidduch, the Bleib, with the daughter of Reb Eli Lopian, and she died in the engagement, the shviger. But gets her, and he went to ask the Chavetz Chaim what to do. Should he cancel the shidduch or not? And the Chavetz Chaim quoted him, Baruch She'aman. Baruch She'aman till Baruch Poidu Matzu. And stop. And he asked again, could the Rebbe please explain to me what he means? And he quoted again the Baruch She'aman. And he came back to Rabbi Yerucham Alevi and said, that's what the Chavetz Chaim told me. He says, why did you ask him what he meant? He said, I asked him twice. So I asked him a third time. He said, I'm 22. He's the Chavetz Chaim. I asked him twice. Isn't that enough? And you know what? If I ask the third time, I'll probably say Baruch She'aman a third time. You're right. The Baruch will be right. I think he says he should go to England. I don't know why, but that's what he says. So he went to England. And then came the Shoah, and they understood Poido Matzah. I asked Reb Leib, not Reb Leib, I asked Reb Ram, did they treat the Chofetz Chaim like a Rebbe? You know, we're Litvaks. Did they treat the Chofetz Chaim like a Rebbe? He told me, no. They treated him like a Navi. Whatever comes out of his mouth is Dvar Hashem. He's aware of it. Anything that came out of his mouth, they treated it like a Nebuah. That's unheard of in our circles. We're Litvish. But he was something else. They treated him like a Navi. Whatever came out of his mouth made sense, didn't make sense, none of your business. That's what he said, that's what you do. Okay, but anyway, when it comes, the B'chonim Vassaman, that had such, you want to call something from mine, 100%. The B'chonim Vassaman, I say, that was Mevatel himself Ka'afa Da'ama to the Chavetz Chaim. Do you know that he argues a few times on him in learning in Kovetz Shiurim? The B'chonim. Which shows when it comes to learning, there's no Chasidus. When it comes to learning, there's no Chasidus. Mamas. The B'chonim. The B'chonim called the Chavetz Chaim a Kodesh when he was alive, the Chavetz Chaim. He didn't call him anymore Chavetz Chaim. He called him Shamati Me'HaKodesh. When he was alive, he called him that. And yet, in Kovetz Shiurim, he argues with him a few times. Torah, you learn, it's not that you're saying, I'm right, the Chavetz Chaim is wrong. I don't understand, that's what it means. I'm sure the Chavetz Chaim will have what to answer. But that's how you learn Torah. There's no Hasidus in Torah, by the Litvaks at least. Nachon Rabbi Yamin, when it comes to Torah, how can you argue in a Ketzois? You do. Okay, Rabbi says, do you have a shtickle Torah for the Shabbos table? Okay, Rabbi say, 2 weeks from now is Mamash Rosh Hashanah.
2 weeks in March.
Rosh Hashanah just started 2 weeks from now. Wednesday night, 2 weeks from now. Shabbos, Rabbi say, is the yahrzeit of the Maral. Shabbos. Chayim. But Rabbi say, isn't it amazing what's happening the last 2 days in Lebanon? No, I'm serious. Isn't this like boggling? This was never done in the history of the world. Is there any precedent for this? It has to be that you did it because no one else has the precedent of this. It's by default. Who else can do it? Not America, not Russia. I just hope it will be good for Am Yisrael.